made it to Chirohustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channel and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, and Prime Spine Consulting. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 317 of the Chirohustle podcast. I am your co-host, Luke Millette, and here's your host, Jim Chester.
So today we have the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Ammitai Worob, and if you want to hear how politics can have a chiropractic influence, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chirohustle podcast. Today we have Dr. Ammitai Worob coming in from New York. Luke is coming from Michigan, and I am here in the grand state of Colorado. And before we jump into this episode, I just want to set some talking points why we exist as a show. We do protect free speech in chiropractic. We do protect the sacred trust. We do support subluxation-based chiropractors, and innate intelligence is real. So with that being said, welcome to the show, Ammitai.
So Ammitai.
Ammitai.
I know it's a mouthful. That's all right. You got 2/3 of the way there, just like I'm working on. So that's all right. You know, you don't run into an Ammitai Worob every day. So, it grows on you, though.
I've said it right 17 times pre-show.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you for having me on.
Welcome to Chirohustle.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's great to be here, and I'm excited about today's show and the next one coming up as well.
Yeah, so we did discuss some things off camera. One of those things was you're running for a state position in politics in New York. I want to talk to you about that first and foremost, and then we'll get into your chiropractic story.
Sure.
So, yeah. What spurred you to do this?
Like we talked about the other day, we as chiropractors are so service oriented, and that's really what's driving me to do this pursuit into running for political office. So it's a state legislature position that I'm running for, New York State Senate. And really anybody who's running for state level office, I would hope would be service driven, but also has some level of ego and also some level of insanity. So hopefully I have those in the right proportions. But also because I love chiropractic and I know that we are part of the solution. Like any kind of healthcare that focuses on function first and symptom second is going to be a successful one. And if it's not in that order, it doesn't work. So I know that bringing the big idea to the broader public and being able to serve, I've been very fortunate, and we'll talk about my chiropractic career, that I've been able to really make a big impact on a lot of people's lives in my practice, in the thousands, tens of thousands. But I'll be able to make a big impact on a whole lot more people's lives, being a state legislator and influencing legislation that affects people in all of New York State. And also, a lot of things that get passed in New York become the template for other states as well. So if I can have a hand in making things right to work for as many people as possible, that can affect people throughout the country as well.
Well, best of luck to you on that endeavor in the future. But let's turn it back to the past a bit and discuss what originally got you inspired to become a chiropractor in the first place.
So, but even before I had ever seen a chiropractor, I was interested in chiropractic. It might have been from seeing stuff in movies, and I don't know what drew me towards it, but I was interested enough to go do a tour at New York Chiropractic College. So I just dialing it back even a little bit further. I was born outside of New York City, moved upstate to Rochester, New York, which is where I grew up, then lived down in New York City for a dozen years before coming back upstate here. But even before I had ever been to a chiropractor, I visited New York Chiropractic College just because there was something telling me like I should check this out. And that's one of those, chiropractic chose me more than I chose chiropractic. And just how, if you're open to what's out there. If I avail myself to kind of what's out there in the universe, the right things come in front of me. So I went and checked it out. And at the time I was like, well, that's a long time, a lot of sciences and, cost and all that stuff. But I tucked it in the back of my brain, and maybe a year later, again, same thing. I don't have some chiropractic miracle story as a patient, but I remember waking up from a nap one day on a Sunday, like I'd been watching football, and then I woke up and I was like, you know what? I want to go see a chiropractor, which is just this, again, chiropractic chose me. So I went and saw this chiropractor, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. And, he was one of those guys where after the first visit, I paid, and I was like, well, when should I come back? And he's like, when do you want to come back? I was like, I don't know, tomorrow. So, I kind of was like, I like this. I mean, I feel different. It's not like I was in pain or anything, but I felt like energized and full of life, and was fortunate to have that experience again, where I was just drawn to a chiropractor's office, and he's a super nice guy. I just talked to him not that long ago. So I started thinking about chiropractic again. I had signed up to go to chiropractic school. I'd looked at different places, and just in my decision-making to go to chiropractic school, I called 9 different chiropractors who had gone to 9 different schools. And I asked, the guy from Life, and the gal from Palmer, and the guy that went to Bridgeport, and what their experiences were like. And everyone was so generous with me. And I found that to be the case throughout the chiropractic profession, as people have been so generous with their time and expertise and knowledge, really from before I entered the profession and throughout. So I signed up to go to NYCC. I was trying to look something up in terms of prereqs, and came across a New York Chiropractic Council website by accident. And there was a guy doing a one-day cash practice seminar out at the Marriott by the airport, LaGuardia. And I went because it was free for students. I wasn't a student yet, but I figured, I'll check it out, and went and was completely blown away. Like, everything he talked about completely resonated with me. He was putting words to things I felt and I knew inside, but I had never come to my consciousness, that healing comes from the inside out. And that, if we can remove barriers, our bodies are the most incredible, we have such innate ability, again, not just to heal from within, but to express life. And if we remove interference, we can do that. So, all these things really resonated with me, and really an above, down, inside out approach just totally made sense to me. So I went, that was maybe a month before I started in chiropractic school. And it really informed the way that I approached the program there and the resources that I sought out. So again, it was one of those things that I made a mistake typing in a Google search, like, for NYCC, and came up New York Chiropractic Council, and ended up there, and it completely shaped my education and eventually the way I practiced.
And other than getting involved in politics and running for Senate, what are some other things that you say would make you unique or different from other chiropractors in your neighborhood?
I think there's really 3 things that I've always said what makes me different. And before I even go into those 3 things that make me different, I'll just say in where I live in Ithaca, New York, there's about 25 chiropractors, which is about 1 chiropractor per 3,000 or 4,000 people. And when I've had patients ask me, like, oh, aren't there a lot of chiropractors here? Don't you have a lot of competition? I say, look, the greatest competition we have is that people don't know that we exist, and they don't know what we do, and they don't know how we can help. Because if they did, we'd all have lines, like 100 miles down the road. So, with such low utilization of chiropractic, the biggest challenge we have is getting out there and letting people know what we do and how we can help and how we can be part of their really overall healthcare picture. So, and that's where I feel like the things that make me unique are great, and I'll talk about those in a minute, but that really there's the biggest competition we have as chiropractors is people not knowing what we do and how we can help. So, the things that have made me different is I try to take the big picture approach. And I always tell people, like, I'm not the one-stop shop. I'm not going to be able to do everything. I'm not, but my job is to ask you what's important to you and see how I can help with that. And anything that is within my wheelhouse, I'm going to do everything I can to help you meet those goals. Whether it's someone who can't pick up their kids, someone who needs to get back to work, someone who just has lingering low back pain, someone who has no pain and is a 54-year-old marathoner and wants to continue to do this into their 70s and 80s. So whatever their goals are, I'll do everything I can to help them within the confines of my office and what I do. And there are things that I don't do, and I can refer them out to other folks. And having those relationships with folks on the medical side, other chiropractors, there's a guy who does network in my town, and there have been times where I refer over to him because I think, like, this person I think needs some network, and then they can come back for some more structural stuff with me. So really taking the bigger picture approach and putting the person first, and that kind of should be like the starting place. But I think just the way I have been able to forge relationships, again, among other chiropractors in town, but also with the medical community too, and talking their language. And I've developed good relationships with the PTs in my town. I tell people, like, I could show you exercises, but I suck at it and I don't like it. So let me send you over to the PT and he can do that stuff for you. And I'll take care of your spine and do what I do here. So, I think taking that bigger picture approach, having a plan for people is the other thing. Like, really, if someone's coming, I know that when people come to a chiropractic office in pain, they don't come because the pain started that morning. I mean, that's probably less than 1% of the time. They're coming because they have lost the ability to do something in their life, or they're afraid that they're going to lose the ability to do something. Even if they are, again, that 54-year-old marathoner. I'm thinking of one woman that comes to see me. And so, I want to look at the bigger picture. I want to look at, like, how can we get you as healthy as possible now and into the future? And again, whatever my role is in that, I'm going to work on that 100%. And whoever else we need to get in the picture, we'll do that. And I guess the third thing is like, as far as, getting in there and moving some bones, like, I'm kind of the best in town. So that's the other thing that no false modesty on my part there.
Well, certainty is one of those things that really matters in a clinician, and in chiropractic, we call it delivering the goods. And it's important to be able to deliver the goods and to detect and locate and correct vertebral subluxation. I think that that's so important for people to understand. And it sounds big and scientific, but really what Doc's doing when he does that is he's correcting the misalignment in the spinal joint, putting pressure on the nerve, and he takes that, puts it into a better alignment, body starts healing naturally. Pretty cool stuff, man. I think that when people do, like you said earlier, get the big idea, whether it's brand recognition, whether it's political engagement, whatever it is, once people get the big idea, as BJ said, all else will follow. And I believe that you having that certainty and knowing how you can build relationships, relationship equity and relationship capital is gold. And if you have good relationships with other practitioners in the community, that adds more value to the brand of chiropractic. And I think that what you're doing is super important. But I just wanted to kind of reshape the interview back into a position of talking about what you're doing in New York. And one of the questions is what are the benefits of adding a chiropractic perspective into a political agenda? Like, I know that that's something that is probably the real reason behind why you're doing this.
Sure. Well, let me say two things. And one is what you just said about what chiropractic is. If every chiropractor could explain it the way that you just did, again, everyone would have a year-long wait list in their practice.
Amen.
Pretty simple, but not easy for most folks. And just, again, having that certainty and knowing what we do and being able to communicate that to people. I mean, that's at least 2/3 of it. That's 90% of it. It's like, here's who I am. Here's what I do. Here's how I can help. And then the delivering the goods is the last part. So
I went in reverse order.
And, Greek philosopher Pericles said, just because you don't take an interest in politics doesn't mean politics won't take an interest in you. So, I know that we are feeling that acutely right now. And us as chiropractors have felt that for, the entirety of our existence, from the Morikubo case of 1906, that we're distinct and separate form of healthcare, through the Wilk case in the 80s, the AMA antitrust suit. We've been swimming upstream for over 100 years. So, yeah.
Just to break in, I spoke to Chester Wilk last week on the telephone. He's 91 years old.
Right on. Yeah. That's a voice that,
by the way, he wants to be more involved.
That's awesome. Well,
he wants to get LinkedIn. I have his phone number right here.
All right. I'm going to ask you to introduce us, because talk about standing on the shoulders of giants. He's one of them, you know?
And he's sharp as a tack, and he just wants to be in contribution.
Yeah. I mean, again, standing on the shoulders of giants is what I'm doing.
So sorry to jump in there, but I thought it was pertinent to the conversation.
Totally. Amazing. So, when I also, over the course of my 13-year career, which I'll just talk a little bit about, and that, I'm kind of a generalist, but I do what I do really well, whether it's with babies or folks in their 90s or anyone in between, I've just tried to serve my community. And again, doctor comes from the word to teach. And that's been a big part of what I felt my responsibility was. And that's why you see me in a hospital basement here in Buffalo, New York, is for this semester I've been overseeing interns at Duville's chiropractic program and working with them. And it's been just a total joy working with students, whether it's, again, that patient communication and teaching your patients by the table, whether it's going out to your community and doing lunch and learns, or lectures at your food co-op, or like I've done it at Cornell's medical center, like their healthcare center. And everyone needs to know about chiropractic, whether you got an MD next to your name or not. They kind of, most of them are really curious about what we do. And when I presented to them, the last part of it was I presented a slide on a paper that talked about attitudes of medical providers and referring to chiropractors. And something like 80 to 90% of them wanted to refer to a chiropractor, but the two biggest inhibitory reasons that they didn't were, one, they didn't really understand what we did, and two, they didn't really know anyone in their community. So again, just about getting out there and letting people know what you do. They want to know what we do, and they would send people to us if they knew what we did, and also if they had if they knew people in their community. So get out there. So going back to over these last 13 years, I've seen how politics influences our scopes of practice. Looking at Michigan, you're in Michigan, Luke. There was it wasn't that long ago that we had 7 state associations and a really old scope of practice that limited chiropractors to only being able to take x-rays. And the reason is there was no CT scan, there was no MRI back when the scope was written. But then getting those 7 state associations on the same page, and then being able to go to the Capitol and talk to legislators within 6 months, once they all got on the same page, they were able to modernize their scope of practice. And there's one of the beautiful things about chiropractic is you can practice it so many different ways. You can be upper cervical only, you can be doing tons of rehab. Chiropractic is beautiful because there's so many different ways to arrive at the benefits of chiropractic. And so I for folks that are just totally pain-based chiropractors, what a wonderful service to provide a drug-free way to not be in pain. And then for folks that are really more holistic and looking at more of a wellness and a whole lifestyle, I feel like that's taking it to the next level, but it's all good. So seeing the impact of how we can be constrained politically, New York was the second to last state to license chiropractors. It wasn't until the 1960s that we got licensure for chiropractic. And there was a guy who taught in my school when I was just getting there. And he was the last chiropractor to be arrested in New York State for practice in medicine without a license. And he was a well-dressed guy in his 80s. He always had like the patent leather shoes and, like the kerchief. And he was known to, maybe spin a yarn or maybe magnify the story. But he would talk about the last time he got arrested in New York State for practicing medicine without a license, because there was no licensure for chiropractic. And, he would say like he got arrested at 11 o'clock in the morning. And the sheriff came and said, "All right, buddy, you're coming with me." And he told his front desk person, "I'll be back after lunch." So the sheriff said, "What makes you so confident that you're coming back here after lunch?" He said, "The judge is my first patient after lunch." So, he was a character, Lloyd. So, anyway, just seeing how politics affects us and our ability to practice, and how our freedom to share with others the gift that we have can be constrained by politics. And that's kind of like the narrower part of it. There's like the whole monetary side of it. Like if we take x-rays and a radiologist in a hospital take x-rays, if it's the same thing, we should get paid the same. And so that's important for chiropractic, because we shouldn't have to be fighting with both arms tied behind our back. Same thing with scope of practice. But going back to the very beginning, what we talked about is really bring that big idea to in Albany, in my state, but to bring the big idea to lawmakers when they're making healthcare legislation, when they're looking at who has access to what. Taking the big picture and looking at the whole person and seeing what actually is effective and sustainable, which is what we've been doing for 120 plus years. Like what we've been doing works, and it's starting to get adopted. And I think that mindset is available to people if they're exposed to it when it comes to lawmakers.
You've made it to chirohustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, and Prime Spine Consulting. Let's hustle.
So where do you see chiropractic going in the next 20 years? How do you see it developing and changing?
Well, I think there's the opportunity for growth and expansion, or we could just stay with our same marginalized little niche, and that's why I'm running for office, is because unless we do something differently, we're still going to be this little kid in the corner playing on his own, with it. So, I don't want to minimize the impact that we have. I think for the amount of practitioners we have and the amount of people we help, it's incredible. And also when it comes to research, like how little funding there is for research to validate what we do. And not just like, does your low back pain get better with chiropractic, but like looking at quality of life indices and people's ability to feel empowered and taking control of their own health and increasing their activity and function. Again, focusing on function and quality of life. That's where chiropractic really shines. Sure, we can help with neck pain, back pain, headaches, but quality of life and feeling empowered is where chiropractic really shines. And so we can be, right now already medical societies and journals, their best practices is musculoskeletal condition, go to the chiropractor first. Now, hopefully we can get more of that adoption. Right now there's awareness, but not engagement. And so that's really where I can see chiropractic expanding, and it's got to lead to more enrollment in chiropractic programs to get more practitioners out there. Right now, there are more chiropractors retiring than there are ones coming into practice. And part of that is we need to let people know that this is a wonderful, wonderful profession to get into. And that's why I love working with these students, is they're like spizzed about getting out there and helping people and making people's lives better. So I can see in the next 20 years, and it's going to take some steps, but more chiropractors out there serving more of the public and really having more of that cultural authority that we've always been on the outer edge of, but really what we do works. Like we hold, like the beliefs we hold are actually held by others as well. They just don't associated with chiropractic.
So this is a spin-off question to that. And why do you suppose from your earlier comments that the challenges with arresting chiropractors for practicing generations ago and having the concerns with the AMA, why do you feel like the medical world has had its crosshairs on chiropractic to either discredit it or to stymie its growth?
Yeah, well, we've been a threat, like if we're taking market share, if we take away that cultural authority, I shouldn't say take away, if that cultural authority is diluted because someone else can do something better, that's a threat,
But wouldn't they want people to be healthier? Isn't that their business?
I think, look, I'm going to take the most benevolent look at it. And I think that most medical doctors do care about their patients first and foremost. And it's that they don't know what we do and they don't know how we can help and they don't know how we can work together. And so in the absence of that, then we just look like some weird other thing. So I do think that most medical doctors, and not just most, like the vast majority, really, they put their patients first and they're working with the toolbox that they have and that they were taught, but they don't get an education as to what chiropractic is and what it does and how we can be a part of a person's healthcare. So, and then I think where the more pernicious area is, the organization, state and national organizations like the AMA, they're a group that their purpose is not they don't put the patient first. They put their profession and their livelihood first. So that's where, that hasn't been at the core of their mission to make sure that people are healthy. It's to make sure that doctors have the best environment to be able to practice in. And sometimes, that's where there's that disconnect and where things get lost. So, again, I'm going to take the most benevolent attitude towards medical doctors because I think most people get into it for the right reasons and they serve people for the right reasons. They just have a different template and a different toolbox to work from and a lack of understanding of who we are and what we do.
So who would you say are some of your biggest influences in the world, or who's inspired you to become who you are today?
Oh man, there's, I don't know that there's the Mount Rushmore of people that I look up to, but I've had so many mentors over the years. Some of the people, so there's people that I've met once. Like I met Reggie Gold one time, and he was good and cranky that night. But talk about like opening my mind and expanding how to communicate with patients. There's a guy down in Bucks County in Pennsylvania, Dane Donahue, that I got to know when I was a student, and talk about a guy that like walks the walk. I have so much respect for him, and he taught me so many things. Something I talk about even here on the campaign trail, which is a principle that he taught me a long time ago that I use every day, is people need to know that you care before they care what you know. And that's where connecting with the human being first before they become a patient or practice member, connecting with the person in front of me before I see them as a voter or someone who can endorse me. So, seeing the person first. So, there's so many people, like I said, that have been so generous with me in chiropractic. One thing I always tell students is go out and shadow as many offices as possible, see how, what people's practices look like these horrible, fluorescent lights that I would never have have my patients lying on their back looking up to. But again, I'm in a hospital basement right now, which is a great opportunity for them to interface in a multidisciplinary setting. So I don't want to poo-poo it. It's just the lighting sucks. But, seeing what people did, what people didn't do, what forms they had, how the CA answered the phone, what their communication was like, how they adjusted, what their technique was like. And what that allowed me to do was not only absorb just all these pearls of wisdom from individual practitioners, all throughout wherever I went. I went throughout my area. If I was on vacation, went to Cape Cod, I'd go up and down the Cape, go into every chiropractor I could go to. So not only did I gain pearls of wisdoms and absorb all that like a sponge, but then I got out into practice and, I've got, a 6-week-old. Is this baby tongue-tied or what's going on? And I can call the pediatric practitioner that I met down in Westchester, who, I shadowed because I wanted to see what a pediatric practice looked like. Or, I have someone who's had 3 strokes and has a bunch of neurological deficits. I called the neurodiplomate and whose whole practice is TBI, traumatic brain injury and post-stroke, and asked, hey, what should I be looking for? Should I be, how should I be taking care of this person? Should I be referring to a non-force practitioner, like a network practitioner? So, and then, there's so many people in the profession. I referenced earlier that that seminar, that one-day seminar that I went to by accident was Pat Gentempo, and he, the first thing he did was he got out in front of the room, and it was 100 chiropractors and me as a student. And he said, "Can someone tell me what a subluxation is?" And I thought to myself, when I graduate from school, someone asked me that, I'm going to be able to tell them what it is. And guess what? I wasn't able to, because that's, you lose focus in school and kind of get drawn away from other things. But I'll tell you, I learned fast on the job because I had to explain it to patients. So, he also, like listening to On Purpose when I was in school was really meaningful for me, and all the guests that he had on there. When I went to Chicago, I tried to get an appointment with Marshall Dickholz before he passed away. So, there's so many, again, icons in chiropractic. And then there's the people that we don't know that are in the trenches every day. Like I think about, one of the first people I shadowed was this guy, Vinny Justino, down in New Paltz. I don't know who knows Vinny. I mean, I'm sure his community knows him really well, but he's there serving year after year, decade after decade. And really, there's the famous folks in our profession, and then there's the folks that only their community knows. But man, did they make an impact in their community? So, and then getting turned on to just expansion of consciousness stuff, and people outside our profession. So again, I try to take as much as I can from everyone I'm exposed to, and people that are really heroic in their own way every day.
Well, really cool response. I think that you definitely have had some good influence when it comes to learning about chiropractic, the big why, the big idea, and becoming a great communicator, and being a good servant, and seeing that in others. I believe that those are all good attributes when it comes to somebody that's a healer and a care provider. And you understand the nuances between professional courtesy and professional connections within other scopes of influence when it comes to being in the healthcare model. Even though I call chiropractors care of health providers, not healthcare providers, because you guys actually provide care for people's health, and the whole healthcare thing has become a little jumbled as to what people believe that delivery system to be. I do tell people that we have amazing emergency crisis care services in this country, but for staying healthy, chiropractic first, chiropractic second, chiropractic third down the line, and then intervention and referral out with chiropractic still included. And I think that people just have to understand that chiropractic should be a part of the complete paradigm, regardless of who's co-managing. And
yeah, totally. I mean, if I'm in a ski accident, not that I ski, but or let's say I'm hiking, I slip down a gorge, I break a leg, I puncture a lung, like, thank God we have the people in the emergency room.
Saving lives.
Yeah, totally. And like, medicine is amazing at keeping people from dying, but it sucks at growing people's health. And that's where we fit in.
Mm-hmm. Well, at this juncture, let's tell people where they can support you and how they can help push you to the top to support chiropractic politically.
Sure. So, yeah, as we talked about at the top, and we'll talk about it more in the future, I'm running for state senate in New York. The website is Worob for Senate, WOROB, FOR, Senate.com. And people can go there. They can opt into being on our email list to keep, we would love to keep you up to date what's going on with the campaign and the successes that we're having. There's also the ability to donate to the campaign, which, that's the fundraising part's always the fun part, right? But it's part of the game in politics, and I would love people's support, even if it's $5, $10. That it's not just the money, but it's the grassroots support. When people see that you have a lot of people behind you, they take notice. And I think that's going to be one of the keys for me to be successful in this race, is to show that I have a lot of grassroots support. So like I said, even if it's $5, $10, if you want to see a chiropractor sitting there at the table, and that's part of where I'm at right now in a hospital basement. Like we as chiropractors work as islands unto ourselves, and we make such a huge impact in our communities, kind of from the outside of the mainstream, for calling it what it is. And I am so grateful that I've had the relationships with my patients that I have, and the opportunities that I've had, and the success that I've had in my practice. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here working with students, building them up, asking them, so you adjusted this guy's atlas, what does that do? How does that help them? And if they can have ownership of what we do, they're going to be successful in practice and make a difference. And so kind of working within the inside, and I'm grateful for this hospital here in Buffalo for hosting us as a chiropractic clinic. I mean, they're kind of, this is where I see chiropractic going, is being part of the team, seen as peers in growing people's health. And then being, again, in having a seat at the table of the decision makers who decide what is and is outside of our scope of practice, what kind of seat we have at the table, and our ability to practice chiropractic, whether you're a guy who's a rehab guy, or a upper cervical only gal, pediatrics only, or only geriatrics. Like, there's so many different ways that we as chiropractors can serve, and I want to make sure that that is preserved and like you said, is sacred, because we are part of the solution. Like, what we do is the solution. Function first, and not that we're the one and only thing out there when it comes to healthcare or care of health. But we are as important as anybody in the system, and having someone at the table, when laws get written, when bills get written and enacted into law, having our vision is going to be critical. So, sorry, I went off. I can get ahead of steam behind me. WorobForSenate.com, please. And then also we're on Facebook too. Worob for Senate's on Facebook as well. Like us, follow us, support our campaign in whatever way you're able to. We'd love to have you as part of the team, because this is really, we're in it together. I'm trying to make a difference here, and I'm trying to also set the groundwork for other chiropractors to follow suit in other states, so that we can really have maximum impact and see chiropractic have maximum impact throughout this country.
All right, everyone, head over to WorobForSenate.com. Dr. Ammitai, we're out of time today, but thank you very much for being our guest, and we wish you the best of luck in the races.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you so much, and I'll see you tomorrow.
You got it.
All right. Have a good night now.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.